Admiral Kang stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking out at the stars. His fleet of 3,000 vessels moved through space like a dark cloud. Each ship was the size of a small city, filled with weapons that could destroy entire planets. The Vorthok had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years, and Kang had personally conquered over 200 worlds. "Sir, we are approaching the target system," said Commander Nara, walking up to him with a data tablet. "The locals call it Sol. The third planet is inhabited by a species called humans." Kang took the tablet and studied the information. The planet was blue and green, covered mostly in water. The beings living there were small and weak compared to the Vorthok. They had only recently learned to travel between planets in their own system. Their weapons were basic rockets and simple energy beams. "How many humans live there?" Kang asked. "About 8 billion, sir. They live in large groups in cities. Most of their technology is primitive. They still use combustion engines and basic electronics." Kang smiled, showing his sharp teeth. The Vorthok were tall, with thick gray skin, and powerful muscles. They had evolved on a harsh world where only the strongest survived. Humans looked soft and fragile in comparison. "This should be easy," Kang said. "What is their military strength?" "Very weak, sir. They have some aircraft that can fly in their atmosphere, and a few ships that can travel to their moon. No real space weapons, no shields, no energy barriers." Kang nodded. This was exactly what he expected. Young species were always the same. They spent their time fighting each other instead of preparing for threats from space. By the time they realized the danger, it was too late. "How long until we reach their planet?" he asked. 6 hours, sir. "Should we prepare the standard conquest protocol?" "Yes. Send the surrender message as soon as we enter their system. Give them 12 hours to respond. If they refuse, we destroy their major cities until they agree." Commander Nara bowed and walked away to prepare the message. Kang turned back to the window, watching the stars. Each point of light reminded him of another victory. The Zelari had tried to hide in their underground cities. The Thasans had built massive walls around their planets. The Mercari had even tried to run away to another galaxy. None of it had worked. The Vorthok way was simple and effective. They would arrive at a world with overwhelming force. They would demand surrender. If the locals refused, they would demonstrate their power by destroying something important. Most species gave up after seeing just one city turn to ash behind Kang. Dozens of officers worked at control stations. Each one was trained from childhood to serve the Empire. They knew exactly what to do when they reached a new world. The process had been perfected over centuries. "Sir," called Lieutenant Yoru from the communications station. "We are receiving some strange signals from the target system." Kang walked over to look at the displays. "What kind of signals?" "They appear to be scanning us, sir." It's very detailed. "Scans, but their technology should not be advanced enough to detect us at this distance." Kang frowned. That was unusual. Most primitive species did not even know the Vorthok were coming until they appeared in their sky. "Are you certain the signals are coming from the humans?" "Yes, sir. And the signals are originating from multiple points throughout their system, not just from their home planet." "Multiple points? Show me." The display changed to show a map of the Sol system. Red dots appeared, marking the sources of the scanning signals. There were dozens of them, scattered from the inner planets all the way to the outer edge of the system. "That is impossible," Kang said. "They have barely left their home planet. How can they have equipment spread throughout their entire system?" "I do not know, sir. But the scans are very sophisticated. They are mapping our ships, our weapons, even our internal systems." Kang felt a small chill of worry. In 3,000 years of conquest, he had never encountered anything like this. "Run a deep scan of their system. I want to know what is out." There, the ship's massive sensors focused on the Sol system, probing every planet, moon, and asteroid. The results made no sense. According to their instruments, the system appeared normal. Just a star, some planets, and empty space. But the scanning signals were definitely there. "Sir, there is something else," Nara said, returning to the bridge. I have been studying their communications. The humans are not acting like a species. About to be conquered. What do you mean they are calm, sir? To calm. Their military leaders are giving orders, but they do not seem afraid. They are talking about something called the plan, and referring to events that should happen soon. Kong's worry grew stronger. Events. What events? Do not know, sir. But they keep mentioning that they have been waiting for something. They seem ... prepared.
Well, wait.
The Admiral looked back at the display, showing the human planet. Something was wrong here. Very wrong. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen a primitive species act this way. They should be panicking, running around in fear, trying desperately to build weapons that could not possibly stop his fleet. Instead, they were waiting. The transmission began exactly 12 hours after the Vorthok fleet entered the Sol system. Admiral Kong's voice, cold and commanding, echoed across every communication channel on Earth. Primitive beings of the third planet, I am Admiral Kong of the Vorthok hegemony. Your world has been selected for conquest and integration into our empire. You have one rotation of your planet to surrender completely. Your leaders will present themselves to us. Your military will lay down all weapons. Your population will prepare for relocation to designated work sectors. The message continued for several minutes, listing the terms of surrender in detail. The Vorthok had done this so many times that they had perfected every word. The tone was designed to create fear and hopelessness. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your civilization, Kong finished. You have seen what happened to the Zelari, the Thasans, and the Mercari. Do not make the same mistake. You have 24 hours to respond. In the command center deep beneath Seoul, General Minho Park listened to the entire message without changing expression. Around him, dozens of officers worked quietly at their stations. The room was calm, almost peaceful. No one seemed afraid. Sir, said Colonel Unikim, should we respond immediately? No, Park said quietly. Let them wait. We respond in exactly 12 hours, not a minute sooner. And the message, sir? Send them Protocol 7. Kim nodded and walked to the communications station. Protocol 7 had been prepared years ago, along with dozens of other response plans. Every word had been carefully chosen and tested. 12 hours later, the reply came. Unlike the Vorthok's threatening broadcast, the human response was simple and direct. Admiral Kang, this is General Minho Park of the Terran Defense Force. We have received your message. We know who you are. We know what you did to the Zelari homeworld. We know how you destroyed the Thasan cities. We know where you took the Mercari survivors. We have been waiting for you. On his flagship, Kong felt a chill run down his spine. How could these primitives know about previous conquests? Those events had happened decades ago in distant parts of the galaxy. We are not the same as the other species you have conquered. Park's voice continued. We have had time to prepare. We have had time to learn. We have had time to plan. Your arrival was not a surprise to us. It was expected. Commander Nara rushed to Kong's side. Sir, how can they know about our previous campaigns? That information is classified at the highest levels. I do not know, Kang replied, his voice tight with worry. Continue monitoring their communications. I want to know everything they are saying. The human message was not finished. You have conquered 4,000 worlds by using the same tactics. Every time. Overwhelming force, threats, destruction of cities to create fear. But you have never faced an enemy that studied you first. You have never faced an enemy that learned from your victories. Kong's hands clenched into fists. This was impossible. No primitive species had ever spoken to him this way. They were supposed to be begging for mercy, not giving lectures about his tactics. Admiral Park's voice continued. You told us we had 24 hours to surrender. Instead, we give you the same time to reconsider your attack. Look around. Your fleet. Look at your sensors. Look very carefully at our system. That was when the impossible happened. Ships began appearing throughout the Sol system. Not just a few ships, but hundreds of them. They materialized from what had seemed like empty space, their stealth systems deactivating in perfect coordination. The vessels were sleek and fast, completely different from the bulky Vorthok warships. Sir, Lieutenant Yuru called out from the sensor station. I am detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system. These ships. ... They are not using any technology in our databases. And more. Ships appeared near the outer planets, then more near the asteroid belt, then more near the inner planets. Within minutes, the human fleet numbered in the thousands. Is this possible? Kong whispered. They have barely achieved spaceflight. Their technology is primitive. Sir Nara said, studying the sensor readings. These ships are using some kind of advanced stealth technology. They were here all along, but we could not detect them in their weapons. I cannot identify the energy patterns. The human transmission continued. We learned something important from studying your conquests, Admiral. You always attack species that are alone. Species that have no allies. Species that have no time to prepare. But what happens when you attack a species that has been preparing? For decades, what happens when you attack a species that is not alone? As if responding to Park's words, more ships appeared. But these were different. Kong recognized some of the designs with growing horror. Those are Zelari fighters, he breathed. Thawson cruisers and Mercari scouts. That is impossible. Those species were conquered, destroyed, relocated. Sir Nara's voice was barely a whisper. I think we have made a terrible mistake. The final part of the human message was the most chilling of all. Admiral Kong, you are not fighting just humans today. You are fighting every species you ever conquered. You're fighting everyone you ever wronged. You're fighting the entire galaxy's desire for freedom. Welcome to Earth. The first wave of human ships moved like deadly lightning across the void. Captain Juno Lee gripped the controls of her fighter, the Soul's Pride. She dove between the massive Vorthok dreadnoughts. Her ship was tiny compared to the enemy vessels, but it moved with impossible speed and grace. Lightning Squadron, follow my lead, she called through the communication system. Remember, we hit fast and hard, then disappear before they can target us. Behind her, 50 other fighters followed in perfect formation. They had trained for this moment for years, studying every piece of Vorthok technology they could find. They knew the enemy's weaknesses better than the Vorthok knew themselves. The Vorthok fleet opened fire with their massive plasma cannons. Beams of deadly energy filled the space between the ships. But the human fighters were not where the enemy expected them to be. They twisted and turned through the laser fire like leaves dancing in the wind. How are they moving like that? Admiral Kang shouted on his bridge. Those ships are too small to have advanced engines. Sir, they appear to be using some kind of predictive system, Commander Nara replied, sweat running down his face. Know where we are going to shoot before we fire. Juno's fighter slipped between two massive cannon blasts and fired her weapons at the closest Vorthok ship. Our missiles were small, but they struck exactly where the enemy armor was weakest. The explosion tore a hole in the side of the dreadnought. Direct hit, she called to her squadron. Their shields are down on the port side. All fighters target the weak spots. The human ships swarmed around the damaged Vorthok vessel like angry bees. Each fighter knew exactly where to strike for maximum damage. Within minutes, the mighty dreadnought was drifting powerless in space. But the humans were not finished. As the Vorthok ships tried to reorganize their formation, larger human vessels appeared from behind nearby asteroids. These ships were different from anything the Vorthok had seen before. They looked like they had been built from pieces of many different technologies. Captain Daewon commanded one of these hybrid vessels from his bridge. This is the Busan Thunder, he announced. All units, begin Phase 2 of the attack. His ship opened fire with weapons that seemed to change and adapt as they fired. The first shots were simple energy beams. But as the Vorthok shields deflected, the weapons automatically adjusted their frequency and power. The second shots cut through the enemy defenses like they were made of paper. Impossible, Kong screamed. Their weapons are learning from our defenses. Sir, these humans have somehow combined technology from multiple species, Nara said, studying the sensor readings. I can see Zelari stealth systems, Thawson energy weapons, and Mercari shield technology, but they have improved everything. The battle became a nightmare for the Vorthok. Every time they thought they understood the human tactics, the enemy would do something completely unexpected. Human ships would charge directly at Vorthok vessels, only to disappear at the last second and reappear behind them. To sacrifice themselves in kamikaze attacks, only to have their pilots escape in tiny pods moments before impact. They fight like they have no fear of death, Kong muttered, watching a human destroyer ram into one of his cruisers. The human ship was destroyed, but the explosion took out 3 Vorthok vessels. What terrified the Vorthok most was the coordination. The humans fought as if they could read each other's minds. When one ship was in danger, others would immediately move to help. When a formation was broken, it would reform in seconds. No, they fought not as individual ships but as a single unified force. Captain Sura Choi watched the battle from her command ship, the Enchan Lightning. She had spent years studying Vorthok battle tactics, looking for weaknesses. Now she was using everything she had learned. "Signal all units," she ordered. "The enemy is starting to retreat. Do not let them regroup. Press the attack." Fleet, which had conquered thousands of worlds, was falling apart. Ships that had never known defeat were exploding or fleeing in panic. The careful formations that had dominated the galaxy for centuries were crumbling under the human assault. "Sir, we must retreat." Nara shouted over the noise of alarms and explosions. "We have lost 30% of our fleet. Retreat." Kong could not believe what he was hearing. "The Vorthok do not retreat." "Sir, look at the tactical display. We are surrounded. Our weapons are ineffective against their adaptive technology. More human ships are arriving every minute." Kong looked at the display and saw the truth. His mighty fleet was being destroyed by an enemy that should have been helpless. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy were being torn apart by fighters no bigger than shuttlecraft. "All ships fall back to the outer system," he finally ordered. "We need time to understand what we are facing." But as the surviving Vorthok ships tried to retreat, they discovered that the humans had prepared for this too. More ships appeared. From hidden positions, cutting off their escape routes, the hunters had become the hunted. The retreating Vorthok ships found themselves trapped in a web of human vessels they had never seen before. Captain Dahan emerged from behind the asteroids of the outer system, leading a fleet of ships that looked like they had been built from scrap metal and mining equipment. "This is Captain Han of the Asteroid Mining Defense Force," he announced over the communication channels. "No Vorthok ship leaves this system alive." Admiral Kang stared at the display in horror. These new ships were clearly converted mining vessels, but they had been armed with weapons that glowed with deadly energy. Worse, they moved with the same impossible coordination as the other human forces. "Where did all these ships come from?" he demanded. "Our intelligence said they barely had a space program." "Sir," Commander Nara said, his voice shaking, "I think our intelligence was wrong about everything." The mining ships opened fire with weapons that seemed to tear space itself apart. Beams of twisted energy struck the Vorthok vessels, and wherever they hit, the enemy ships simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, but gone, as if they had never been there at all. "What kind of weapons are those?" whispered. His question was answered when a new voice came over the communication system. It was not human. It was the chittering sound of a Zelari, a species the Vorthok had supposedly wiped out 20 years ago. "Admiral Kong," the voice said, "this is Commander Zix of the Zelari Liberation Fleet. Do you remember us? You destroyed our homeworld. You killed our families. You told the galaxy we were extinct." More ships appeared, and Kong recognized their design with growing terror. They were Zelari fighters, but they had been modified with human technology. They were faster and more deadly than anything the Zelari had possessed during their conquest. "We have been waiting for this day," Commander Zix continued. "The humans found us in your prison camps. They freed us. They gave us new ships. They taught us how to fight back." The Zelari ships dove into the Vorthok formation with suicidal courage. But unlike the desperate attacks of their ancestors, these strikes were precise and coordinated. Each Zelari pilot knew exactly where to hit for maximum damage. More voices joined the communication channels. A deep, rumbling voice that could only be Thassan spoke next. "This is General Tom of the Thassan Heavy Battle Group. You remember us, Admiral? You broke down our walls, you scattered our people across the galaxy, but we are still here. Massive ships appeared from behind the gas giant planets. They were clearly Thassan in design, but they too had been upgraded with human technology. Their weapons were the same plasma cannons the Thassans had used in their last desperate defense. But these new versions were 10 times more powerful. The humans came to us in secret, General Tom continued. They helped us escape from your work camps, gave us the tools to rebuild our fleet, showed us how to hide until the time was right. The Thassan ships began firing their upgraded weapons. The plasma beams cut through Vorthok armor like it was made of paper. Ships that had survived 1,000 battles were destroyed in seconds, but the worst was yet to come. A musical voice that Kong had hoped never to hear again filled the communication channels. Admiral Kang, the voice sang. This is Captain Mel of the Mercari Swift Strike Force. You thought you had destroyed us all? You were wrong. The Mercari had been the most dangerous enemy the Vorthok had ever faced. They were small and fast, and they had the ability to disappear completely from all sensors. The Vorthok had only defeated them by poisoning their entire star system, making it impossible for them to return home. Now they were back. And their ships were equipped with stealth technology that made them completely invisible until they chose to attack. They appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking at Vorthok vessels and vanishing before return fire could be aimed. Is this possible? Kong shouted. We monitored all the prison camps. We watched all the work planets.
How did so many
survive? Lieutenant Borisong's face appeared on the communication screen. She was young, probably no more than 25 years old, but her eyes held the wisdom of someone much older. Admiral Kong, she said calmly, you made one simple mistake. You assumed we were like you. You assumed we would only care about our own species. But humans are different. We cannot stand by and watch others suffer. She paused, letting her words sink in. For 50 years, we have been running secret operations throughout your empire. We have been freeing prisoners, one camp at a time. We have been rebuilding destroyed civilizations, one world at a time. We've been preparing for this moment, one day at a time. The display showed the truth. The Vorthok fleet was completely surrounded by ships from dozens of species they thought they had conquered or destroyed. All of them were fighting together, coordinated by human tactical systems. You are not fighting just Earth today, Song continued. You are fighting the entire galaxy's desire for freedom. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, the galaxy looked completely different. President Inha Zhou sat in her office on the top floor of the new Galactic Council building in Seoul. Through the large windows, she could see ships from dozens of different species landing and taking off from the spaceport below. The Vorthok colonies in the Outer Rim have declared independence, reported Minister Hannah Park, entering with a stack of reports. That makes 347 worlds that have broken away from the Empire in the past month. President Zhou nodded slowly. The collapse of the Vorthok Empire had been faster than anyone expected. Once the galaxy saw that the mighty Vorthok fleet could be defeated, rebellions had started on every world they controlled. Any word from the Vorthok High Command, she asked. They're still refusing to surrender officially, Park replied. Their military is falling apart. Most of their ships have been abandoned by their crews. The soldiers are just walking away. Joe walked to the window and looked out at the busy spaceport. A group of young Zalari engineers were working alongside human technicians to repair a damaged freighter. Nearby, Thassan construction workers were building new landing platforms while Mercari pilots tested a new type of cargo ship. It is strange, she said quietly. 6 months ago, these species were enemies or strangers. Now they work together, like they have been friends for years. The transformation had begun immediately after the battle. The humans had not demanded surrender from the defeated Vorthok. Instead, they had offered something no one expected: help. Human medical ships had rescued wounded Vorthok soldiers. Human engineers had helped repair damaged Vorthok vessels. Human diplomats had sat down with Vorthok leaders to discuss the future. President Joe Park said Admiral Kong has requested another meeting. He says he wants to discuss the terms of integration. Joe smiled. Admiral Kang had been their prisoner for months, but he had been treated better than most hotel guests. His cell was actually a comfortable apartment, and he had access to books, entertainment, and regular meals. More importantly, he had been given reports about what was happening in the galaxy. "Send him in," she said. A few minutes later, Admiral Kong entered the office. He looked older than he had 6 months ago, but not broken. His gray skin had a healthier color, and his eyes no longer held the cold cruelty that had once defined him. "President Joe," he said, bowing slightly, "I've been reading the reports about the liberation of the outer colonies. My people are being treated well." "Of course they are," Joe replied. "We told you from the beginning that we are not conquerors, we are liberators." Kong sat down in the chair across from her desk. "I do not understand your species," he said honestly. "You defeated us completely. Could have done to us what we did to others. Could have destroyed our worlds and scattered our people. Instead, you offer us a place in your new government. Why would we want to destroy you?" Joe asked. "You have knowledge and skills that could help make the galaxy better. Your people are engineers, scientists, and explorers. The only thing wrong with the Vorthok was that you thought strength meant taking things from others." She pulled out a tablet and showed him a video. It showed a Vorthok engineer working with a human scientist to design a new type of medical scanner. They were laughing together as they solved a difficult problem. "True strength," Joe continued, "comes from helping others become stronger too." Kong watched the video with fascination. He had never seen his people work with other species as equals. In the Vorthok Empire, they had always been the masters, and everyone else had been servants. "The Galactic Council has voted to offer full membership to any Vorthok world that wants to join," Joe said. "No conditions. No punishment for past actions, just a chance to start over." "And if we refuse?" Kong asked. "Then you refuse," Joe replied. With a shrug, "We will not force you to join. We will not let you conquer others either. The Age of Empires is over." Kong was quiet for a long moment. "What happened to the other species? The ones we conquered?" "They are free," Joe said simply. "The Zalari have rebuilt their home world. The Thassans are constructing new cities that are even greater than the ones you destroyed. The Mercari have established colonies throughout the galaxy. All of them are members of the Galactic Council, and they do not want revenge." "Some did at first," Joe admitted. "But revenge only creates more enemies." We showed them a better way. Instead of fighting each other, we all fight together against problems like disease, poverty, and ignorance. Through the window, they could see a massive construction project taking shape in orbit around Earth. It was a space station that would serve as the new capital of the Galactic Council. Ships from every known species were bringing materials and workers to help build it. "The galaxy was falling into darkness," Joe said quietly. "Species were afraid of each other. Everyone was alone and angry. But sometimes when everything seems lost, something unexpected happens. Sometimes the smallest light can push back the greatest darkness." She looked at Kang with kind eyes. "Would you like to help us build something better?"